Okay, in this video, we're going to talk about blending modes and opacity. We've sort of covered some of those, but we're going to take a look at a couple examples that give us hopefully a little bit better understanding of how these things work. I have the 4 files open that are attached to this page on Canvas. The first 2 files I'm going to be working with is the graffiti file and the blend mode graffiti on me. And as you probably guessed, we're going to take this graffiti and we're going to put it on this wall. So the first thing I'm going to do is come over here to the graffiti image, use the lasso tool, and just make a coarse selection and copy that. Command C, go to the blend mode graffiti on me, Command V, and the first thing I'm going to do, actually the first 2 things I'm going to do is I'm going to rename the layer something that makes sense, graffiti, and then I am going to make this into a smart object. So I'm going to right click in the gray area of the layer, convert to smart object. I'm going to zoom out a bit so I can see the whole thing, Command T, and I don't want to distort this. So if you're using Photoshop CC 219, 2019, you don't need to hold down the Shift key. So I'm going to position it like this. Command plus is going to zoom in a bit. I'm going to hold down the space bar and click and drag, moving my canvas around. And this looks pretty good. This is sort of where I want it, maybe up just a little bit higher. And then I'm going to hit the return key, finishing out that transformation. Now, that doesn't look natural. Anybody can tell that's Photoshopped. So I want to use a blending mode that will make it look a little bit more natural. Over in the layers palette, where you see it says normal is a drop-down menu of all the blending modes. Remember I referenced before that a blending mode is having a layer on top interact with the layer below in a different way than is normal. The normal way is the layer on top, the pixels hide the layer below. When we use these other blending modes, what is happening is in some different way, the pixels on the top layer are interacting with the pixels on the layer below. You saw in a previous video where I did a darken, or no, I'm sorry, I did lighten, which allowed the lighter pixels to show through depending on which layer they were on. And we're actually going to do that again here, so it'll be a little bit more coherent then. Anyway, I'm going to scroll through these. I've got this open, and you'll notice I'm not clicking or anything else like that. I'm just going down, and you can see what happens with each one of these. I don't know anybody that knows exactly what each one of these do. And so a lot of times it's just trial and error to get what you want. But you'll notice I'm landing on hard light here. And what I want is this thing to start looking like it's really on the wall. So for that to happen, I have to see some of the texture of the wall showing through. Hard light looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and choose that. And now I've changed the blending mode to hard light. It's a little bit too bright, a little bit too much, so this is where the opacity of the layer comes in. I'm going to click there and I'm going to slide the opacity down a little bit, still looking at my image, and I'm eyeballing this. I'm making decisions based upon what I think looks good, and you'll notice that I'm dialing it around 70%, and that's looking pretty good. The only other problem I have is those hard edges and stuff like that. And you can see it even goes into that poster of that dog, that cartoon dog. So how do I deal with that? Well, we're going to talk about that in other videos coming up really quickly. And you've already sort of dealt with layer mask, so we might as well do a layer mask. Down here, while I have targeted the graffiti layer, I'm going to add a layer mask. It's a blank layer mask. You'll notice it's white. Remember, white reveals, black conceals. So I've got this white layer mask, and I've got the layer mask targeted because I can see the little white corners. I don't want to have the pixel layer targeted, because if I have the pixel layer targeted and I start drawing with black, I'm going to be drawing black pixels on that pixel layer. Not what I want to do. I want to draw with black pixels on the graffiti mask, the layer mask, so that I can hide some pixels. I'm going to come over here, grab my paintbrush, come down to my color palette, and I'm going to switch black and white. Now I've got black, and I'm going to right click. Watch what happens. I've got this brush tool, and I'm going to right click, and it shows me the size and the hardness, and I notice that it's really soft. The brush is really soft. This is a really hard brush, hard edge brush. This is a really soft brush. So right now I want the soft brush, and I'm going to hit the return key to get rid of that palette. Now remember, I'm going to be painting with a soft brush and black on the layer mask, which is going to hide the pixels of the graffiti. So I'm going to come here and notice how I'm just painting that soft edges out there, right there, and I'm going around, and it's okay here. That's nice. Look at that. It's all coming into view now. It's starting to look a little bit more natural. Now, when I come to this poster right here, that's going to have a harder edge. So I'm going to zoom up on that poster area, hold down the space bar. I'm going to dial down the size of my brush. Can you see that right there? The left bracket key. Now, I'm going to right click and just dial the hardness all the way up. So I've got a really hard edge. And I'm going to dial down a little bit more, and you'll notice that I want to paint these straight lines a little bit smaller. I want to paint these straight lines. It's really hard for me to paint straight lines, but here's a trick. This is a really cool trick. I'm going to start right there, and notice I tuck the top of that brush right on the edge of the poster. And remember, I'm going to be painting with black, so hopefully I'm going to be hiding the pixels on the graffiti layer and showing the poster pixels. So I click right there, and you'll notice it does a pretty good job. Now, I lifted up on the mouse. I didn't click and drag. I just clicked, and I came over to this other corner, and I'm going to hold down the Shift key, and I'm going to click again, just a down and up, and it drew a straight line, a painted straight line of black on the layer mask, but you'll notice it drew the straight line for me. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to hold down the Shift key down here till I get to this part, click, and it draws another straight line. And so I've used that holding down the Shift key technique to draw these straight lines, which is hiding the frame of that poster. Now I'm just going to right bracket, making my brush a little bit bigger and getting rid of all the rest of that stuff. And now notice I'm hiding the pixels of that graffiti, and now the poster is showing through. Really nice. I'm going to zoom out, Command minus a couple of times, take a look at my work, and you'll see now that looks pretty darn good, right? One last quick blending mode demonstration I want to show you, but before I do, I just want to let you know that you might notice I'm in a different shirt. That's because it's a different day when I'm recording this. The previous recording for this part didn't work out very well. So I have two images here, lightning.jpg and blend mode lightning on me. I'm going to go to the lightning.jpg, Command A, selects all, Command C, copies, Command V, paste. And then over here I'm going to change in the layer palette. I'm going to change the name to lightning. And then I am going to make a smart object out of it. So there we go. We do that every time. I want you to get into that habit, adding a new layer, name it, and if it's appropriate, go ahead and create a smart object. So the next thing we're going to do, pretty simply, is change the blending mode. Over here, it's normal. We are going to change it to lighten. What that does is it takes a look at the pixels between the lightning layer and the background layer, and it's going to make a determination of when they're covering each other, which one is the lighter one, and it's going to show you that, which is the reason why you're seeing all the lightning pixels not the black pixels in that image, because the black pixels in that image are darker than the background pixels, so those are showing through. I hope that makes sense. Now, the only other thing I want to do here is I want to add a layer mask, and I'm going to grab the black paintbrush, make sure I've targeted the layer mask, and I'll make that paintbrush a little bit bigger. And what I can do is mask out some of the sort of that halo effect lightning there if I want to. But what I can also do is mask out like areas of this tree here. And so what it's going to look like when I do that, I'll dial down the brush just a bit. So what it's going to look like when I do that is the lightning's kind of swooping around the tree. So this is a pretty common way of doing things in Photoshop, where you have a layer with a blending mode and a mask. Go ahead and try this out. It's kind of cool.